In Japanese, yes. I'll send you the image at the end of the lesson.
Hola.
Konnichiwa.
Japanese? Konnichiwa.
そうです。はじめまして。
What's that?
はじめまして。
はじめまして。
はじめまして。Nice to meet you.
And hola, Spanish? Me llamo Karen.
Karen.
Mucho gusto. Nice to meet you. I think it's a bit easier than Japanese.
Nice to meet you.
And how do you say pleased to meet you?
はじめまして。
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 はじめまして。Woo, okay. Thank you.はじめまして. Okay. So now you have to introduce that person to everybody else and teach us all how to say the greeting. And Leslie's put up her hand to start.
Je voudrais présenter Sandra.
Sandra? Welcome. And Sandra, would you like to introduce?
Présente Leslie.
Très bien.
Bonjour tout le monde, voici Nathaniel. Bonjour, enchanté.
Muy bien.
Nairi about this? Hajime mashite.
And?
Oh, guten Tag. Das ist chorizo.
Well done.
Chorizo. Sorry, it's chorizo.
Konnichiwa. Unowa. Inowawa. Shan.
That's pretty good effort, I think.
Guten Tag. Casting.
Bonjour. Je vous présente Sandra.
Ah, très bien. Up the end there. Excelente. Well, I thought that was a really good way of starting a classroom. Here we have a number of different individuals who each have their own learning styles. Some of us need a bit more repetition, especially when it's someone like me who's trying to learn Japanese. And I think it just opens our awareness a little bit to what our students go through. In our classes, there's different levels, and I'm hoping that we'll sort of address that. It's not going to be about me. I'm going to introduce myself and what I do a little bit, but it's going to be more about us sharing ideas, because I think that's invaluable. And I'm not pretending that I'm any expert on this, far from it. I'm just starting myself off with this formal differentiation, if you like, and the flipping the classroom, and I'm liking what I'm doing, and I think my students are too. So I just wanted to share a little bit of that with you. So I was going to get one of my students to Photoshop the chairs in different colours so that was the differentiation in the flipped classroom, but we never got round to that. So as Christina said, I'm trying to combine the two things. I think they work really nicely together. Oh, don't check for updates now, please. Cancel. No. Let's try that again. Yeah. Just to start with, I thought if you had a piece of paper in front of you somewhere that you might write down on your own just a quick definition of both what you think differentiation is, just very quick, and what you think the flipped classroom is. And when you think you're ready, share that with the person next to you. I won't be able to understand you, I don't think. Oh, okay. No, that's okay. No, please do. I think that's lovely. Yeah.
I combine, and this is for everybody. So you have different things happening.
Would that fit in the classroom? This is Carol Ann Tomlinson that you've probably heard of. She's quite big in the differentiation instruction, and she talks about what differentiation is not. It's not just for students with labels, meaning those students with special needs. We're going to talk a little bit about that later. It's not just tracking in the regular classroom. Effective differentiation requires use of flexible grouping patterns so that students consistently work in a variety of groups based on readiness, interest, learning preference, student choice, teacher choice, and working within those limits. I mean, there's a load of stuff. I'm not going to go through and read all of that there, but yeah, it's quite interesting. How can this be implemented successfully? What I think you've all got is one of these handouts that I just gave you just to sort of collect your thoughts. And the first section says the same as what the slide says up there. How can this approach be implemented successfully? And what I thought you could do is just divide up into pairs or small groups, and maybe if we have 5 different groups, each one can choose a different little heading there, and make some notes. So if I say this group here, if you choose the first one here, or if you take planning for different outcomes from the same task, just gather some thoughts about what you could do in the language classroom. And if you 3 here do modifying learning tasks, just any ideas that you might come up with in a language classroom. And this, giving some students some support and direction. And over here, using different forms of grouping in the classroom. And Leslie, using different resources. If you just want to write some ideas down of how differentiation can be, other side, how differentiation in the flipped classroom, how can this approach be implemented successfully using different resources.